So thank you and good evening, everyone, for joining us. Let me actually start my video before we do this. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the community outreach meeting for Candle, Massachusetts. We are seeking a host community agreement with the town of Berlin for marijuana cultivation and product manufacturing licenses. This meeting will be recorded, and we just initiated the recording. And we ask that you hold all questions until the end. We're going to leave plenty of time. And if you do have questions, we'll ask that you raise your hand, and we'll make sure to get to you at the end of the presentation, which I'm going to begin sharing right now. And if folks don't mind, if you can just stay on mute during the presentation, then if you do have a question, you can raise your hand, we'll call on you. And you feel free to unmute to ask your question when we get to the Q&A part of the presentation. Alrighty, so let me share my screen. Okay, David, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Alrighty, so we're excited to introduce ourselves to everyone on the call today. My name is Gabe Single. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Candle, Massachusetts, and I'm joined by my partner and longtime friend, David Michaud, who is the co-founder and COO of Candle, Massachusetts. David and I actually grew up very close to Berlin in the Newton, Massachusetts area. And as you can see here, we are a local and experienced cannabis company seeking a partnership with Berlin, Massachusetts. And the purpose and goal of this meeting is really to provide some general information about our plans for this facility and for our commitment to being a great partner to the town of Berlin, the citizens of Berlin, and everyone who will be working with as part of this project. This facility is going to be located exclusively in the town of Berlin, and there is some overlap at the entry point with Hudson. And as I mentioned, we're here to present information about the site, the operations, and answer any questions that folks on the call do have. So just for an agenda, we introduced ourselves, and David will be moderating the meeting along with Margaret from the town of Berlin. We'll present the meeting materials, and then we'll do questions and answers. And as I mentioned, please do hold off on questions till the end. And if you don't mind staying muted on your phone or computer until then, that would be much appreciated. So here's a map of our proposed site. This land is owned by Kane Industrial Trust, and it is located at 10 Bigelow Street in Berlin. The entrance to the property is located in Hudson. It is properly zoned, and we will go through the normal site plan, permitting, and zoning process with both towns of Hudson and Berlin. But really an ideal location for this sort of facility. The only abutters are Kane Industrial Trust, who owns the property, the town of Berlin, and the town of Hudson. So really an ideal location in an industrial area. This will be a two-story industrial style facility. Right now, the plan is for 92,500 square feet with a footprint of about 46,250. And we'll have right around 100 parking spaces. So plenty of space for our employees, for guests and visitors. So they are not going to distract or cause any issues with any of the neighbors. So as I mentioned, we are a locally owned company. I actually live 20 minutes from the town of Berlin and from this site. I was born and raised in the Newton area, as was David. And something that we wanted to make sure we got across today is we really measure our success by our ability to meet the following criteria. We want to cultivate and process really exceptional products that are very, very popular and in demand in the market. And of course, that are fully compliant with all the regulations set forth by the town of Berlin and Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We want to run an efficient operation and make sure that our facility is safe, sustainable, and 100% compliant. And really, maybe as important as anything, is to develop a reputation as a trusted stakeholder and employer in Berlin that plays an active role in the local and larger community. So as I mentioned, we're not an out-of-state organization. I live with my family and young children 20 minutes from this site. I plan to be there every day. We plan to be active in the community. We plan to create a lot of jobs. And we're really just excited about this potential partnership. The licenses that we are pursuing are marijuana cultivator license and marijuana product manufacturer. So there is no retail aspect of this business or this facility. We are planning to grow, process, and manufacture cannabis flower and products at this facility. In terms of compliance with local zoning rules, as I mentioned, everything that we do related to this property and this business will abide by all state and local laws and all the rules and regulations of the CCC. So we mentioned some of those things here, including the fact that this site complies with the Commonwealth and Berlin's requirement that there be a 500-foot buffer zone between any existing public and private school. I wanted to mention that this site is in a limited business district, which means there's no zoning amendment or variance required. But of course, we will go through the normal process for site plan approval and any other zoning or permitting required by the town of Berlin or the state of Massachusetts. Now, in terms of security, this is a top priority for our organization. We will, of course, meet or exceed the security requirements set forth in the legislation. And some of those security practices will include perimeter security with motion sensors, alarms, state-of-the-art video surveillance that will be implemented on site and will prevent from any unauthorized intrusion. We'll also have multiple redundant alarm systems that will be operating at all times in case of power outage. And we will be offering and working closely with the Berlin Police Department and providing them with access to any external video feeds if they would like to have those. Now, in terms of some follow-up security practices with the actual products and how we are going to be operating as a business, it's important to keep in mind that every product that we grow, manufacture, and distribute from this facility will be packaged in tamper and/or child-resistant packaging to abide by all the laws of the state and the CCC. And everything from all the required information in terms of cannabinoid profile, serving size, things like that will all be visible on every product that leaves our facility and is manufactured in our facility. Now, preventing diversion of minors, this obviously plays into the security practices, but this is obviously a top priority for our organization. We have a comprehensive practices and procedures that we'll put in place to ensure that there is no diversion to minors. We have a very sophisticated seed-to-sale tracking system, which will ensure that no product leaves the facility without formal tracking. We are only hiring individuals who are over the age of 21, and the facility will be under constant video surveillance. As per state and local rules and CCC guidelines, we will certainly not engage in any marketing initiatives or activities that are designed to appeal to minors under the age of 21. So this is all in an effort to be a really good partner and to obviously operate a business that is 100% compliant with all local, state, and CCC laws and guidelines. Now, part of being a good member of the community is obviously not bothering anyone and preventing any sort of nuisance. So we'll have procedures and practices in place to make sure that we're not disturbing the peace, to make sure there's no public consumption of cannabis on site or near the facility, make sure there's no illegal drug activity, no excessive littering or loitering. We think there's going to be minimal pedestrian and vehicular traffic related to this facility because it's simply going to be the people that work there going and coming from work. And we're going to be enforcing, obviously, any issues with illegal parking or violations of traffic laws and making sure that any visitors or other obstructions are handled by our team on site there. Now, some of the benefits that we had discussed in our Board of Selectmen meeting, which took place last year, as well as some of the other things that we're excited about related to this partnership. First of all, this is a very large operation, and we expect to create hopefully over 100 jobs. And we are going to prioritize as much as we are able to, while following state and local guidelines and laws, prioritize local hiring. So,
oh,
I'm sorry, folks can just go on mute if they don't mind. We'd appreciate it. Thank you. Now, as part of this host community agreement, we're also going to be providing a fee to the town of Berlin based on the annual revenue generated from the facility. We hope to support local vendors, restaurants, whenever we have team outings or team events. We plan to keep all that business in the town of Berlin. And then, like I said, we have a team of myself included, local folks, experienced professionals who are thoroughly background checked and scrutinized by the state and regulatory authorities. So it's important that we make sure you all know who's going to be operating in the town of Berlin, and that we are a local group that has been vetted by the state regulatory authorities. We are committed to satisfying minimum energy efficiency and equipment standards established by the CCC. This is also an important part of being a good neighbor and minimizing the environmental impact that we're going to have. We'll meet all applicable environmental laws, regulations, permits, and other applicable approvals, including but not limited to those related to water quality, quantity, wastewater, solid and hazardous waste management, and everything else that a facility like this needs to do to be 100% compliant. In terms of lighting efficiency, the state of Massachusetts and the CCC have implemented pretty strict rules and regulations around minimum lighting standards that we will be following. We will not be exceeding an average of 36 watts per square foot in active growing space, along with some of the other requirements that we will be following that have been set out by OSHA, by state and local authorities, as well as by the CCC. Once again, as part of being a good neighbor, we want to certainly control noise. We don't see really any, we don't anticipate any issues with noise, but there could be some HVAC equipment, which could potentially make a little bit of noise. Like I said, with the abutters and the space between us and any residential area or other businesses, I don't anticipate this being any issue. We are also very close to Interstate 495 and some other industrial buildings. So we'll certainly promptly investigate any noise complaints and seek to further muffle any equipment or replace with lower noise equivalent if there are any issues. But we will be implementing state-of-the-art equipment and also taking on some other noise control procedures to make sure that that's not an issue at this facility. Odor control, another very important part of being a good neighbor. We have established and will implement a comprehensive odor control and air quality plan. There's a number of structural, mechanical, and operational measures that we are going to implement and employ to ensure that air quality and odor control are not issues created by this facility. Water usage mitigation plan. This is also something that comes directly from the CCC and state regulations. And as required by the CCC regulations, we'll adopt and use best management practices to reduce energy and water usage, engage in energy conservation, and mitigate other environmental impacts. And we're certainly going to be providing the necessary water usage reporting for any 12-month period preceding the date of our annual license renewal. And we are held to limit our water runoff to a maximum of 20% during any watering event. So we'll have practices and procedures in place to make sure that we do that. Like I mentioned, there will be no retail aspect of this facility or this business operating in the town of Berlin, so we don't anticipate any issues with foot traffic or car traffic. At full scale, we expect to employ up to 80 to possibly as many as 100 employees to oversee cultivation, extraction, compliance, security, and administration at this facility. Workers will be entering from the east side on Bigelow Street, will not drive or walk on residential streets, and that's partially why we think this is such an ideal location for this. Certain employees and contractors will be available to respond to emergency needs, along with contracted security professionals if there are any issues with traffic. But I think based on the location, and folks can certainly look on Google Maps, the map that we've provided in the presentation, to see that we're really not too concerned with any issues of foot traffic or car traffic based on location and based on the fact that they're, unlike a retail dispensary or retail store, there simply won't be people coming and going. So I want to thank everyone for their time. Like I mentioned, we're an experienced, qualified, local, and committed group. We're really excited about this partnership. We think there are mutual benefits to the town of Berlin, the citizens of Berlin and surrounding communities, and our company to be able to do business there. We believe this partnership will allow Berlin to make the most of the economic development and positive community impact opportunities available through the adult use cannabis industry in Massachusetts. And we really appreciate your consideration this evening. So now I'd like to open it up to questions. David and I are available to answer any questions about our plans for this facility or really anything else that we're able to answer. So if folks do have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. Alrighty, and we'll give it a minute or two in case anyone can think of any questions, or if anyone else does decide to join the presentation and wants to ask a question. Alrighty, well, if there are no questions, Margaret, I do want to ask if you would like us to hang on the line for a few minutes in case any questions come in, or if we should close the meeting out. Margaret, just want to check in one more time. Not sure if you're on mute, but I wanted to ask if we should stay on the line for a few more minutes to see if any questions do come in, or if we should close the meeting out.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My name is David Litchwell. I'm the fire marshal with the Berlin Fire Department.
Yes, David, how are you?
Good. Could you explain, I saw that you mentioned extraction process. Can you explain how that is and what chemicals you use to perform that duty?
Absolutely. So we're still actually planning that. It's a great question. There are a couple different extraction methods, some using ethanol, some using other ingredients or materials. We actually like the idea of solvent-free extraction, and we're going to potentially pursue that, but we have not finalized our formal plans for the type of extraction that we're going to do. That's really going to be based on the expertise of the folks that we bring into that role and the type of equipment and lab and commercial kitchen that we have set up. I can say, though, we will certainly discuss that with you and run those plans by you before we commit to anything, because we understand how important sprinkler systems and explosion-proof roofing and all the things that go into that sort of extraction process are. And we'll certainly stay in close touch with you as we start to figure those details out. Did you have any other questions related to extraction?
No, I think you covered that for now. I know we'll get more in depth when you start to, figure out the process and which way that you want to go. I guess the only other thing would be to put in your design possibly different ways that you may want to alter that for the future for your HVA system and HVAC system, for air evacuation and so forth in the event of a fire and so forth. So I know you'll be working on that going forward.
Yes, no, it's a great call out. We appreciate it. I think we certainly want to have all of that figured out before we begin the facility build out. As you probably know, it can be very expensive to have to redo some of those things if you do change course. So we will have that figured out. We'll be doing extraction, like I said, based on what we think the market is looking for from a product standpoint, and also the experts that we're going to bring in to fill those extraction leadership roles. And we will want to build the facility out to meet those needs. And like I said, certainly we'll stay in touch with you every step of the way as we do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? And once again, Margaret, if you'd like to let us know if we should hang on for a few more minutes to see if there are other questions, or if we can close the meeting in a minute or two if there are none, feel free to let us know or type in the chat.
Gabe, I think, just another couple of minutes, just to leave the option open for people to ask questions, and then we should be set.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll hang out for a few more minutes and see if any other questions come in. And if not, we'll plan to end the meeting, and we'll call it 4 or 5 minutes if we don't receive any additional questions.
Fire Marshal Litchwell again. Do you have any preliminary plans that you could share with the fire department so we could start to take a look at what you're proposing? I mean, I haven't seen anything other than we were working on the roadway, the access way. I haven't seen anything more than that.
Yeah, and I know Kathy Adams from Kane Industrial was on. I think she dropped off, but we could absolutely share the preliminary site plan. In terms of the internal build out, that's going to be, we're going to get that process underway, working with engineers and architects and all the other folks that we have on the team that will be doing that. Once we have provisional licensing, which is probably a couple of months away if everything goes as planned. So, once again, certainly want to keep you in the loop every step of the way. I'm happy to share whatever we have for preliminary site plan drawings and plans. As of right now, we can work with Kathy to get that to you. But in terms of any sort of internal floor plan or design of the facility, we're just not there yet because we haven't finalized the exterior site plan just yet.
Nope, that's fine. I understand that. As long as it, whatever you have currently, even a site plan that we could at least take a look at and maybe make some comments on and, give you some guidance, ahead of time.
Absolutely. No, we would actually really appreciate the feedback. So let me speak with the developer and make sure that we get you the most up-to-date plan. We can probably email you a PDF probably by tomorrow morning.
That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Gabe and Dave, it sounds like crickets right now. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for doing the community outreach meeting. It was very informative, and it was actually a nice refresher because it's been so long before you actually introduced the proposal to the board. And just let folks know that next steps would involve the board's final execution and LLC's final final execution of host community agreement. We will be issuing a certification that community outreading was held. That would go with your application to the cannabis.
I know Margaret had a bad connection, and I think she actually just dropped off. So we'll give her another minute to join back on.
My apologies, I dropped off. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know at what point I was disconnected, but I was just trying to go over a couple of next steps. So we talked, I mentioned that we will do a final execution of the host community agreement. You will have that in hand. We'll do a certification of the community outreach meeting. You will have that in hand here. And then you will begin steps to go to the zoning board of appeals for the local permit process. So I just wanted folks to understand what the next steps would be locally here. Okay.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, Margaret. And we look forward to working through those next steps with you. We appreciate all of your help throughout this process and the Board of Selectmen. If there's any additional information that we can provide as we work through those final next steps, please don't hesitate to let us know. Alrighty. So Margaret, if there are no other questions, shall we close the community outreach meeting?
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you everyone again. If there are any follow-up questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And Margaret, look forward to working through those next steps with you and your team.
Thank you. Same here.
All righty. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.